For centuries, Earth had been an enigma, a backwater planet of seemingly no consequence, yet untouched by the galaxy's warring empires. Every attempt to conquer or even probe the blue world ended in silence, its would-be invaders vanishing without a trace. To the mighty Ziran Empire, rulers of 1,000 systems, this defiance of logic was intolerable. Armed with the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, they set out to uncover Earth's secret, certain that no primitive species could outmatch their dominance. But as they ventured closer, they would come to understand a terrifying truth, one that would leave even the boldest conquerors trembling in the void. The Ziran Empire was a juggernaut of galactic domination, a force that had expanded its reach across 1,000 star systems and subjugated every species that dared stand in its way. Their war engines consumed planets, and their technology turned hostile fleets to ash before their hulls could crack the void. Conquest was their way of life, and their archives overflowed with the records of vanquished worlds. Yet one planet small, unassuming, and spinning on the edge of an average star system had eluded them entirely: Earth. To the Zirans, Earth was nothing more than a curiosity at first. Its inhabitants were primitive, bound to their planet by antiquated technology that had barely scratched the surface of space travel. Their broadcasts, detectable even from light years away, were riddled with chaotic noise and endless stream of nonsensical chatter, entertainment, and crude scientific theories. By all appearances, the planet should have been an easy target, ripe for annexation and exploitation. And yet, no one touched it. Over the centuries, there were whispers of what happened to those who tried. Entire fleets had vanished after charting a course toward Earth's solar system. Long-range probes, designed to gather data from the planet's surface, returned garbled or incomplete transmissions before disappearing altogether. Some empires in their expansionist heyday had attempted outright invasion, though no official record of their fates existed. What remained were half-remembered accounts, passed between the survivors of nearby colonies, stories of shattered ships, ghostly energies, and a silence so absolute it seemed to erase even the memory of those lost. The Zirans were not a superstitious species. To them, the tales of Earth's unnatural safety were little more than exaggerated rumors, convenient excuses for weaker empires who lacked the courage to take what should have been an easy prize. But as their own empire grew and pushed deeper into unclaimed regions, Earth's untouched status became a glaring anomaly. The planet's resources were significant, its strategic position undeniable. For a species so advanced, its persistent existence as an independent entity felt almost insulting. The Ziran High Council convened to discuss the mystery. While some dismissed Earth as irrelevant, others found its history impossible to ignore. Intelligence networks confirmed the absence of any advanced defenses. Earth's satellites and primitive space stations were little more than relics to the Zirans' cutting-edge technology. Yet every strategic analysis ended with the same confounding result: Earth's insignificance was its greatest shield. There was no reasonable explanation for why it remained unscathed. Driven by the need to unravel this mystery, High Counselor Varen proposed a bold initiative. They would send their most advanced fleet, armed with the full might of the Empire, to investigate Earth. If there was a hidden threat, they would uncover it. If Earth's safety was a mere coincidence, they would erase the planet and cement their dominance over the region. As the fleet prepared to depart, a quiet unease settled over the Empire. Unspoken but palpable, it rippled through the ranks a sense that this mission was different, that the silence surrounding Earth was not one of weakness but of warning. The Ziran fleet entered Earth's solar system with calculated precision, their massive warships gliding through the void like predators closing in on unsuspecting prey. From the moment they crossed the heliopause, a strange sensation began to settle over the crews. The solar system felt off. There was no tangible threat, no visible enemy, yet an oppressive atmosphere seemed to envelop the fleet. The first anomaly came from Earth's electromagnetic emissions. What should have been a typical planet's broadcast noise, random signals leaking into space, was anything but ordinary. The sheer volume and complexity of Earth's transmissions were staggering, far beyond what its primitive technological status suggested. At first, the fleet's scientists dismissed the data as a quirk of the planet's unregulated communications. But as they delved deeper, patterns began to emerge. The electromagnetic spectrum was saturated with signals that defied analysis. Fragmented broadcasts carried voices shouting in panic, strange bursts of energy resembling distress beacons, and encrypted messages that the Zirans' most advanced decryption algorithms could not break. Some signals appeared ancient, as if sent by civilizations long dead, yet they originated directly from Earth. Others seemed to pulse with deliberate intent, almost as if they were watching the fleet in return. The Admiral ordered the launch of long-range probes to better understand the source of these transmissions. Equipped with advanced cloaking and data-gathering systems, the probes began their descent toward the planet. At first, everything seemed routine. Earth's surface was a patchwork of vibrant oceans and landmasses, teeming with life and activity. Its cities were visible from orbit, sprawling with what seemed to be a pre-warp civilization oblivious to the fleet's presence. But as the probes collected data, the anomalies multiplied. Instruments that should have delivered precise measurements instead returned conflicting results. Earth's gravity fluctuated inexplicably in isolated regions. Its atmosphere pulsed with electromagnetic waves that seemed almost alive, rippling in ways that could not be attributed to natural weather patterns. Then, without warning, the first probe went offline. Its last transmission was a fragmentary image of the Moon-Earth's lone satellite, revealing a structure that had not appeared in any initial scans. The construct was vast, stretching for miles across the lunar surface, but cloaked in a field that rendered it invisible to most detection methods. The image was blurry, distorted, as if the probe's sensors had been overloaded by something beyond their capacity to process. Moments later, a second probe disappeared, followed by a third. Panic rippled through the fleet as the Admiral ordered a temporary halt to their advance. The data recovered from the probes was analyzed feverishly, revealing a deeply unsettling fact. The lunar structure was radiating energy on a scale that dwarfed anything the Xeran Empire had ever encountered. Then came the sounds. Buried deep within the intercepted transmissions were audio fragments that defied explanation. Whispers, screams, and low-frequency rumbles echoed through the fleet's comm systems, even when isolated from Earth signals. The sounds seemed to burrow into the minds of those who heard them, leaving a lingering sense of dread. For the first time in centuries, the Xeran's masters of conquest and terror felt the cold grip of fear. The fleet's focus shifted immediately to the lunar structure, a monolithic construct partially buried beneath the moon's surface. It was ancient, its design alien and unrecognizable even to the Xeran Empire, which had cataloged the architectural styles of countless civilizations. Its surface emitted faint pulses of energy, rhythmic and deliberate like a beating heart. More disturbingly, it seemed to resonate with the fleet systems, creating subtle distortions that no shielding or countermeasure could prevent. A squadron of scout fighters was dispatched to investigate, their sleek forms gliding silently through the void toward the enigmatic structure. As they approached, the pilots reported strange phenomena, shimmering distortions in space, a feeling of disorientation, and the inexplicable sensation that they were being watched. Their instruments faltered, with sensors flickering between normal readings and impossible spikes of energy. Moments later, the first scout ship vanished. There was no explosion, no visible attack, just a sudden absence, as if it had been plucked from existence. The remaining fighters scrambled, breaking formation in panic, but one by one they too disappeared. The last transmission from the squadron was a garbled message filled with static and a single phrase that sent chills through the fleet: "It sees us." The loss of the squadron threw the fleet into disarray. Battle-hardened officers and soldiers, accustomed to facing overwhelming odds, found themselves grappling with an enemy they couldn't see, hear, or fight. The Admiral, refusing to concede to superstition, ordered a retreat to a safer orbit for further analysis. Yet as the ships attempted to reposition, the lunar structure responded. A wave of energy surged outward from the moon, washing over the fleet like an invisible tide. It wasn't a direct attack, no hulls were breached, no systems destroyed, but its effects were immediate and chilling. Shadows flickered in the corridors of the ships, darting just out of sight. Lights dimmed and flickered erratically, though power systems reported no faults. Crew members began hearing faint whispers, voices speaking in languages they didn't recognize but somehow understood. The fleet's scientists worked desperately to analyze the phenomenon, but the data defied all logic. The energy emitted by the structure seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, bending the very fabric of space and time. More disturbingly, it appeared to be probing the fleet, its pulses growing stronger and more targeted with each passing moment. As the fleet attempted to regain control, a more alarming phenomenon emerged. Crew members began reporting vivid hallucinations, visions of alien landscapes, long-dead civilizations, and incomprehensible entities. Some claimed to see Earth itself, shrouded in an aura of light and shadow, as if it were both a beacon and a trap. The Admiral convened an emergency council to decide the fleet's next course of action. But even as they deliberated, the sense of dread grew. It became clear that the lunar structure was not just a relic, it was alive, aware, and watching. Whatever secrets it held, they were not meant to be uncovered. By the time the fleet managed to pull back to a safer distance, morale was crumbling. The Zirans, who had conquered entire systems without hesitation, now found themselves paralyzed by an enemy that had yet to reveal its true form. And somewhere beneath the surface of the moon, the structure continued its relentless pulse, its rhythm growing faster, as if it were preparing for something far worse. The fleet drifted in uneasy silence, their ships holding position at the edge of lunar orbit. The losses suffered at the hands of the unknown force, silent and absolute, were unprecedented. Ziran technology, the pinnacle of galactic innovation, had proven useless against an enemy that had yet to make itself fully known. Frustration and fear rippled through the chain of command. Every scan, every analysis pointed to the same unsettling conclusion: whatever protected Earth was far beyond their understanding. Then, the silence was broken. Sensors picked up an enormous energy surge emanating from the outer reaches of the solar system. It was unlike anything the Zirans had encountered before, a disturbance so potent that it registered across all spectrums simultaneously, bending the surrounding space-time in ways that should have been impossible. Instruments aboard the fleet's ships struggled to adapt, their displays flickering with incomprehensible data. Out of the void emerged a single vessel. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable. It was smaller than the Ziran dreadnoughts, a lone craft against an entire fleet. Its design bore no resemblance to the lunar structure or any known civilization. The ship was sleek, minimalist, and unadorned, as if its creators had stripped away all excess in favor of pure functionality. But the power radiating from it was undeniable, its energy signature dwarfing that of even the largest Ziran warship. The ship made no attempt to communicate. It simply drifted toward the fleet, its movements deliberate and ominously slow. For a moment, the Zirans hesitated, unsure whether to perceive it as a threat or another puzzle to be solved. Then, without warning, their ships began to fail. The fleet's shields collapsed instantly, their sophisticated energy matrices unraveling as though they had never existed. Weapon systems went offline, their targeting arrays unable to lock onto the strange craft. Engines sputtered and died, leaving the massive warships adrift in space. Even life support systems faltered, forcing the Zirans to scramble for backup protocols. Panic spread among the crew as the alien vessel drew closer. Its mere presence seemed to disrupt the fabric of reality, creating ripples in space-time that distorted light and sound. Shadows elongated and twisted unnaturally, and faint vibrations coursed through the ship's hulls, resonating with an unsettling rhythm. The fleet attempted to retaliate, launching a barrage of missiles and energy blasts at the approaching ship. But their weapons never reached their target. Projectiles disintegrated mid-flight, dissolving into harmless particles, while energy beams bent and scattered, redirected harmlessly into the void. It was as if the ship existed in a state of absolute dominance over the laws of physics themselves. As it passed through the fleet, the alien craft emitted no hostility, no overt attack. Yet its influence was devastating. Hulls began to warp and crack, their materials breaking down at a molecular level. Crews watched in horror as their ships, the pride of the Ziran Empire, disintegrated piece by piece, vanishing into streams of glowing particles. And still, the ship moved forward, unbothered, its destination clear. It wasn't there to engage the Zirans, it was heading for Earth. As it drifted past the last of the crippled warships, it left behind a silence deeper than any the fleet had known, an absence that was both physical and psychological. In that silence, one truth became inescapable: the Zirans had never been the aggressors in this conflict. They had merely trespassed into the territory of something far greater and far less forgiving. The Ziran fleet, or what remained of it, lay scattered and crippled in orbit around Earth's moon. The alien craft had passed through them like a phantom, leaving devastation in its wake without a single shot fired. Ships that had once stood as symbols of imperial power now drifted as silent wreckage, their crews left helpless against an enemy they could neither fight nor comprehend. Despite the paralysis gripping the survivors, Earth itself remained maddeningly unchanged. From orbit, it appeared as it always had, its blue ocean sparkling under the sunlight, its cloud formations swirling in mesmerizing patterns. The primitive human cities glimmered faintly at night, their lights outlining continents and coastlines in delicate threads. To the Zerans, it was incomprehensible that such a world could wield such power or inspire such protection. The alien craft, having completed its effortless sweep through the fleet, now hovered above Earth's atmosphere. Its presence was both serene and terrifying, as though it were a sentinel standing watch over something far more significant than the Zerans could understand. The fleet's surviving scientists frantically pored over the data they had managed to recover. Every analysis pointed to a single conclusion: the alien vessel wasn't just protecting Earth. It was a construct of something far older, far more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Its energy signature bore no resemblance to known power sources. Instead, it seemed to draw from the very fabric of the universe, bending reality to its will. But why Earth? Why this insignificant backwater planet? As the Zerans searched for answers, a new wave of phenomena began. The wreckage of destroyed ships began to shimmer, their remnants dissolving into streaks of light that arced downward toward Earth. What should have been lifeless debris was somehow drawn to the planet, merging into its atmosphere like falling stars. The Zerans watched in stunned silence as even the drifting remains of their dead were pulled into this inexplicable process, vanishing into Earth's surface without a trace. Then came the visions. Across the fleet, surviving crew members reported vivid, intrusive images invading their minds. They saw vast civilizations rising and falling, their histories flashing by in moments. They saw Earth as it had once been long before humanity, a world teeming with strange energies and incomprehensible forces. And they saw the arrival of the alien craft eons ago, when the planet itself had been marked for preservation. The visions carried an unspoken message, a truth that struck fear deeper than any weapon could. Earth was not a planet under siege, nor was it a simple world protected by a powerful guardian. It was something else entirely: a linchpin in the structure of the universe, a keystone upon which the balance of reality depended. To interfere with Earth was to risk unraveling forces that no civilization could hope to control. The Zerans had been fools to approach it, their arrogance blinding them to the warnings scattered across galactic history. Earth was not to be conquered, not to be touched, not even to be studied. It was a planet of silent warnings, its unassuming surface hiding a secret that could destroy civilizations. And now, having trespassed, the Zerans had awakened something that should have remained dormant. The alien craft remained suspended above Earth, its form untouched by time or the chaos it had inflicted upon the Zeran fleet. From its position, it radiated a quiet dominance, like a sentinel standing watch over a sacred boundary. For the Zerans, who still clung to their crippled ships, the weight of their mistake was becoming unbearable. They were intruders in a space that clearly did not tolerate interference. And yet, something was happening to them, something far worse than the destruction of their fleet. The strange energy emanating from the alien vessel began to infiltrate the minds of the surviving Zerans. What started as disorienting whispers soon escalated into full-blown invasions of thought. Crew members experienced vivid hallucinations, moments of disconnection from reality where they found themselves wandering through alien landscapes that defied comprehension. They stood in colossal voids filled with glowing tendrils that stretched for light years, or on the surfaces of dead worlds, where ancient ruins pulsed faintly with a forgotten purpose. Each vision carried a haunting clarity, as if these experiences were not fabricated but memories, fragments of something vast and ancient being shared with them. The survivors came to realize these were not random glimpses but deliberate messages, forced into their consciousness by an intelligence so immense it dwarfed their understanding. This entity, whatever it was, seemed to be teaching them a lesson, or perhaps issuing a warning. Their fleet's black box archives, now barely operational, began to transmit strange data back to the remaining scientists. Readings showed that Earth itself was emitting a field of energy that extended far beyond its atmosphere. It was faint, imperceptible at first, but it enveloped the entire solar system. This field wasn't defensive, it was reactive, a kind of latent force that responded only when disturbed. It wasn't just Earth that was dangerous, the entire solar system had been transformed into a kind of living mechanism, primed to protect itself against invaders. The realization struck like a blow. Earth was no ordinary planet, and the humans inhabiting it were no random species. They were part of something larger, something incomprehensible. Humanity, primitive and oblivious, seemed to serve as stewards of a world that harbored ancient forces. The Zerans, with their advanced technology and boundless ambition, had triggered a response from these forces, a response so overwhelming that it rendered their might meaningless. As these truths unfolded, the alien vessel shifted its focus. Its energy began to extend outward, encircling the damaged Zeran ships. It was not an attack, but a precise and systematic act. Entire sections of the fleet were dematerialized in bursts of light, the molecules of the ships breaking down and dissolving into nothingness. Attempts to escape were futile. The field of energy holding them in place grew stronger, its reach absolute. One by one, the Zeran vessels disappeared, their crews consumed by the same energy that had obliterated their weapons and technology. Yet as the last remnants of their fleet were dismantled, there was no sense of malice or revenge in the act. It was cold, calculated, and entirely indifferent, like an ecosystem ridding itself of a harmful parasite. In the end, only silence remained. The alien vessel, having completed its task, turned back toward Earth. Its purpose was clear: to continue its eternal vigil over the planet and ensure that no other intruders would make the same mistake. The Zerans were gone, their empire's pride reduced to nothing more than a distant memory scattered across the void, and Earth remained as it always had, unchanged, unyielding, and untouchable. The remnants of the Zeran fleet were gone, their once mighty vessels reduced to cosmic dust. Only a handful of survivors remained, adrift in escape pods and powerless shuttles, left to witness the aftermath of their disastrous campaign. The alien craft, now stationary in Earth's orbit, radiated an aura of finality, as if declaring the conflict over without ever acknowledging it had begun. For the survivors, the silence was deafening. In the void where their fleet had once been, there was nothing left to remind them of their empire's strength. No wreckage, no signs of battle, just an overwhelming emptiness that stretched endlessly in all directions. Their personal communication systems, still functional, were flooded with distress calls and incoherent cries from others who had been spared annihilation but left broken by the ordeal. Some begged for rescue, others pleaded for understanding of what they had just endured. None received answers. Earth, the unassuming blue planet that had sparked the Zeran ambition, continued its silent vigil. From their vantage point, the survivors could see it spinning serenely in the void, oblivious to or perhaps fully aware of the chaos it had caused. Its beauty was almost mocking, a reminder that their greatest technological feats had been nothing more than a curiosity to the powers that lay hidden beneath its surface. The alien craft began to move again, slowly descending toward the planet's atmosphere. As it approached, its form shimmered and began to dissolve, as though it were being absorbed into the fabric of Earth itself. By the time it reached the upper layers of the atmosphere, it had completely disappeared, leaving no trace of its existence. The lunar structure, too, seemed to withdraw its presence, its energy signature fading until it was indistinguishable from the lifeless rock surrounding it. The survivors were left to drift in isolation, contemplating the magnitude of their failure. The Zeran Empire, the most feared power in the galaxy, had been undone not by armies or fleets, but by something infinitely more profound. It wasn't just that Earth had been defended, it was that the act of aggression itself had triggered forces beyond their comprehension. One of the survivors managed to activate a long-range beacon, broadcasting a warning to the Empire's core worlds. The message was fragmented, but its meaning was unmistakable: do not approach Earth. It is not what it seems. It is not a world for conquest. It is something more, something. The transmission cut off abruptly, the survivors' escape pod consumed by the same mysterious energy that had erased the fleet. As the message traveled through the void, it reached distant worlds and outposts, each one interpreting it as a myth, a tale of cosmic horror to dissuade would-be conquerors. In the centuries that followed, Earth became an enigma, a legend whispered among civilizations as a place of unfathomable power, a keystone in the galaxy's balance that no one dared to disturb. The Zeran Empire, once proud and unchallenged, never recovered from its loss. Its territories fragmented, its colonies rebelled, and its name faded into obscurity. Meanwhile, Earth remained unbothered, continuing its quiet existence as its human inhabitants carried on, blissfully unaware of the forces that had defended them. The galaxy moved on, civilizations rising and falling, each learning in their own way to respect the unassuming blue planet that no one dared to approach again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories for more thrilling tales of science fiction and adventure. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories, where every tale pulls you deeper into the unknown. Dive into the extraordinary, question the impossible, and prepare for endings that leave your imagination ablaze. The stars are calling. Are you ready to answer?